Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, folktales, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I'm your host, Annabelle. I'm coming at you live. Technically, when you're listening to this, it's not live, but I'm live right now. I'm alive. I am on planet Earth. I am in human form, and I'm here observing, trying to make it work. It is a crazy, brutal fucking time on planet Earth, but when hasn't it been? I'm trying my best to choose kindness, trying my best to choose creativity. Here we are. Today is a Saturday. It's already January 6th today. And it's the new year. I'm so excited. So many things have changed. So many things are changing. And seasons, no reason to change. If you don't listen to the Gap Band, this is your sign. You should start listening to the Gap Band. You should start with no reasons to change. Seasons, no reasons to change. Then you should watch Charlie Wilson's Tiny Desk. Okay, here we are. Tarot, part 2. Part duh. We've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this. You've been waiting for this. We've all been waiting for this. I'm so excited. If you haven't listened to part 1, listen to part 1 because I'm going to give you, this is really about like going in depth to each card and you're going to be missing out on the beginning of the journey. Okay. But as we dive deep into this, I want to circle back and talk about the Sephiroth. So just as like a quick recap, that the tarot, the oldest known tarot decks are from Egypt. And by the time they were brought to Europe, they were already being used as card games. It is possible that they were used for divination, but regardless of what the card decks were used for, it is clear that they come from very ancient Egyptian mysticism. And interestingly enough, the big takeaway is that the Torah, and specifically the Kabbalah, is the best recorded book that we have on ancient Egyptian mysticism because Moses himself had become the Prince of Egypt. You know, if you haven't seen the Disney movie, highly recommend. It's a fantastic film. But, you know, the story goes that his family couldn't afford him. Or was it the law? Actually, you know what? Let's fucking talk about Moses for a second. I could paraphrase it, but let's fucking get into it, bitches. Also, I don't know what the fuck is going on with my mic. I hope it's not sounding scratchy to you. It's doing this thing where sometimes it sounds fucking scratchy. I'm not an IT guy. I need help. Okay, so the story of Moses. He was born in Egypt, and yes, okay, so his older sister, Miriam, and he had an older sister, Miriam, and an older brother, Aaron. And at this time, the Pharaoh had commanded that all male Hebrew children would be drowned in the River Nile. Interestingly, this actually makes me think of the Christmas episode. In the Christmas episode, I talk about another part of the Bible where King Herod, who was actually a Jewish king, ordered for Hebrew boys under the age of 2 to be killed. And so this actually could be borrowing from that story. I was mentioning that there is no historical evidence of that. That doesn't necessarily make it not true, but it could be borrowing, you know. I have noticed that like a lot of like really big prophet stories often borrow from like ancient stories from that, you know, people hear that kind of get like recycled and then they snowball into like, oh, this is like the story of our main prophet, but maybe it's borrowing from folk tales or fairy tales that are much more ancient that have like been circling in the zeitgeist. Okay, So Moses is born. The Pharaoh at the time is like, Hebrew male babies are going to die. And this is when Miriam puts Moses in a little basket, a little reed basket, and she sends him down the river Nile, hoping that he will be safe. And the story goes that Moses was found by the Pharaoh's daughter. He was raised Egyptian in the Pharaoh's quarters and was taught the rites of Egyptian mysticism. And then one day he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and Moses kills this Egyptian who was beating the Hebrew, and Moses at this point has to escape the death penalty. And he flees Egypt. He marries a woman there named Zipporah, and here in where he flees to, which is Midian, which is a desert country south of Judah, he climbs Mount Horeb, and God appears to him in the burning bush. Some would claim that the burning bush could have been marijuana, but I wouldn't know. But God appears as the burning bush. He tells Moses his name is Yahweh, and commands him to return to Egypt and bring the chosen people, the people of Israel, out of bondage to the promised land. So there's our story in a nutshell. And of course, then we hear these stories of Moses creating miracles, parting the Red Sea, and Egypt becomes victim to the 10 plagues, and so on and so forth. But really, like, what I'm talking about here is like this legacy, because Moses, the prophet, was trained in these ancient rites. And it's kind of interesting here too, because this also parallels with Jesus, because Mary and Joseph, after birthing Jesus in Bethlehem, ended up fleeing to Egypt to raise Jesus, or Yeshua, as a refugee. So isn't it interesting that Egypt is a major player in both of these stories? And obviously, totalitarian governments seem to be a very big part of biblical stories. Seems to be a very big part of the human, quote unquote, civilization drama. Oh God, here I go on a rant, but I think it's so interesting that historians claim that human civilization has only existed for like 10,000 years. I would argue that it has existed for much longer than 10,000 years, that humans have had cities and roads for thousands and thousands and thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. But I do think that like totalitarianism and war as a industry, as a business, is a 10,000 year old issue. And I think that's part of how historians can recognize civilizations 10,000 years old, because they really are essentially the same structure. But of course, like in the feudal system, possibly the percentages of people in different castes would be different, whereas nowadays people have access to more security with wealth, but less connection with nature. Anyway, okay, I'm getting off track. So tarot is based off of the Sephiroth. What is the Sephiroth? This is why I'm kind of going deep into this. Moses, with him through his life, brought this mysticism of Egypt, which he taught to the Israelites, and eventually was documented in the Torah, and now it is known as the Kabbalah, which is a book of the Torah, a book of mysticism. It's amazing. One of my dreams one day is to learn Hebrew so that I can read it myself in Hebrew. It's fucking sick. So I talked about this in episode 1, but I think I did a pretty poor job of explaining it, so I just want to give it like its time of day. And the word Sephiroth means emanations. That's literally what Sephiroth means. It means emanations, and they are the 10 emanations or the attributes, which the infinite, or also known as Ein Sof, the infinite reveals itself and continuously creates both the physical realm and the chain of higher metaphysical realms. Okay, so this is why it's the tree of life. See what I'm getting at? Because it's about the connection of metaphysical realms with physical realms. Also, I have the windows open. I'm in Mérida right now, in the Yucatan in the south of Mexico. I have the windows open, and sometimes you can hear the birds chirping. It's so pretty. I hope my mic isn't just being a dick right now. Fuck. I might have to. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. Okay. So, be good. Be nice. Okay, we're talking about the Sephiroth. So, it symbolizes a tree, and it looks like a series of circles with lines connecting them. I highly recommend Googling it so you can follow along with me. But like the Cliff's notes of this is that 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 11 of these circles, which are the emanations of God. They're the faces of the infinite. We would say God, but I like saying the infinite seems a lot more fitting. These are the emanations, the faces, the incarnations, the experiences of God. And the lines that connect all of them, these are the pathways. There are 22 pathways. And these pathways are the major arcana, the archetypes. And the major arcana is really a story. It's the fool's journey. It's the story of the fool, the spirit, the being born with nothingness, born as a clean slate, but also with the blueprint of the infinite within itself, with the legacy of consciousness and change within itself. And so the 22 archetypes are the pathway that a consciousness travels through as it expands its consciousness. And this is why the tarot is so fucking cool, because there is no such thing as linear time. So as we progress through life, or even through a day, we could actually move through multiple archetypes, or maybe you could have an entire life that you are one archetype and truly don't change. There is no like necessary order or totalitarian. That's not the right word. There's no rules. Our consciousness doesn't follow linear time and linear space. And the tarot is a fun game, tool, divination practice, whatever you want to make it, that can help connect you with this very ancient categorization of the experience of consciousness, like a clock. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, so episode 1, we talked about the first 6 archetypes, which was the number 0 to the number 6. The first archetype is 0, the Fool, and the archetypes move through the Fool's journey. In a very fast nutshell, the Fool becomes conscious, becomes autonomous, that is the Magician. the experience of being able to act, to be able to interact with matter around you. 2, the High Priestess, tranquility, peace, meditation, connection with nature. I exist, I am conscious, and I exist with nature, one with nature. 3, creativity, to be able to create, to be able to be inspired. This is the Empress, the allegory of femininity, the allegory of the womb. It is a consciousness state. Then we have the number 4, the Emperor, the doer, the maker, the conquestor, the builder. I love thinking about the number 4 as a block. It's the building block, the builder, builder's tea. I once worked with this guy who was like a woodworker, and he told me that his uncle was his family was British. And he was telling me that his uncle was also a woodworker, and he would always drink builder's tea, and it was just tea that was really strong, but he called it builder's tea. Anyway, now, number 5, we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the experience of the visceral world. This is the Saturn. This is trial, tribulation, pain, joy. This is the experience of really becoming fully synthesized with flesh and blood reality. It's brutal. It's beautiful. It sucks. It's awesome. It's all of those things. And it's really just like navigating that push and pull. And the Hierophant is the being who becomes the ultimate observer and in gratitude of all things. And that brings us to number 6. Oh, you hear that little bird? It's so pretty. Love you, bird. Number 6 is the Lovers. The Lovers is not about you and a lover. The Lovers is an internal experience. The Lovers is an experience of loving self on a multidimensional level. What it means is that yourself and your shadow, yourself and your subconscious, your conscious and your subconscious become married. It is a synthesis of self on metaphysical levels. And we think of everything as binary, but there could be 7 selves. There could be 45 selves. You could be living on so many dimensions, and the Lovers is about that synthesis. That's when your consciousness perforates through dimensions, full self-awareness. This is supercharged. Boom. So that was a quick recap. Let's go into... Oh, the peppers are barking. You guys, okay, you guys, hear me out. I'm recording a podcast. I really want to be your friend. You're super cute. And the birds have been chirping, which is why I have the door open. But I really want you guys to just relax for a second. Okay. The peppers seem to calm down. So now let's get into her. I'm going to drink some of my Topo Chico. Topo Chico is by far the most supreme carbonated water on the market. That brings us to the 8th archetype, which is the number 7. The number 7 is the Chariot. The Chariot we love. The Chariot is known in Hebrew as Chet, which means field or fence. And in the Sephiroth, this is really about the separate, enclosed nature of the infinite, of God. And let's see. Chet connects the understanding with severity. So the understanding face of the infinite and the severe face of the infinite, between them connects the Chariot. But in a nutshell, the Chariot is all about that flame, spark, movement. What I like to think about it allegorically is that the Lovers is about truly yourself synthesizing with itself, yourself making love to itself. And what does that create? A new life, a baby. The Chariot is truly about true inspiration, something that comes from beyond, a spark, a movement. So what's interesting, that I think is worth noting, is that the word for chariot in Hebrew is known as the Merkabah. And the Merkabah is a shape. It's a geometrical shape. It is two pyramids on top of each other. So it's actually a three-dimensional Star of David. I've heard that the Star of David is actually based off of this shape. Let's see. Merkabah. So it is said that this is the divine shape that Ezekiel saw, and Isaiah saw, who are also both prophets. And what I've heard is that if you are able to shape your body in the shape of the Merkabah, in this incredible shape, then you have the ability to astral travel. That's what I've heard. So, it literally means to ride in or cart. And yeah, basically it's just super fucking sick. And yeah, basically it's just super fucking sick. So what I think of with the Chariot, the 7 is considered to be a whole number of the universe. It's a number of change, and it's a number of completeness. It is a number of completeness. There are many numbers of completeness, just to be clear. But what I really think is so fucking cool and so amazing is that here we're really starting to see how this allegory is holding up. This is the fool's journey, right? Of course, after the lovers, after a divine union, would become this incredible spark and movement. And so really, when I think of the Chariot, I think of rapid movement over a short period of time. This is like an ancient shape that is associated with astral travel and divine ascension. So really, this is about movement. That's why it's called the Chariot. It's about movement. It's about rapid movement. And this kind of brings us back to that theme that I was mentioning about like non-linear time. Like the Chariot is really about that. It's not really about like chronological or linear order. The Chariot is a testament to that. When your consciousness expands, there is no such thing as time or order. You're just basically on a journey through time and space. Come with us now on a journey through time and space. Am I the fucking worst? Oh my god. I don't know if anyone's getting all my cultural references, but we're trying our best here, you guys. We're trying our best. Okay, so that's 7. 7 is all about that movement. And what's interesting is that the deeper meaning that I was mentioning earlier, that it means like field and fence, and that its symbolic meaning is associated with separateness and enclosure, because I really see this as like discernment and individuation, you know, as you get to a point where you can really start doing energy work with yourself and synthesizing with yourself. You really are enclosed from external influences, but fully conscious. Does that make sense? Okay, let's move to number 8. Number 8 is strength. I do want to mention, this is something that I find really interesting. A lot of tarot decks seem to teeter-totter So some tarot decks actually have Justice as number 8, and they'll have Strength as number 11. But usually, it's more common to have Strength as number 8 and Justice as number 11. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so, our number 8, which is our 9th archetype, is Strength. And Strength, such a beautiful card. In Hebrew, this is associated with the letter of the alphabet Tet, which means serpent or to twist. And the symbolic meaning is to surround. Really what this idea of 8 is sound, like dignity and prowess. I keep wanting to use the word strength, but truly a dignified monolith, if you will. So whereas the lower numbers are very simple and in that sense very stable, 8 is a very stable number. It's 2 sets of 4s. It's 4 sets of 2s. It's a very mathematically stable number. And by this, it is just a very powerful number. It's simple, it's even, and it is powerful, thus giving strength. Almost every single tarot deck has similar imagery for this card. It usually has a person, often a woman, but a person like playfully wrestling with a male lion. And often the cards will have this person like opening the jaws of the lion and have their head like in its mouth. And often they'll have an infinity symbol above their head. And really this is about that personal strength, that personal sense of ease. I mentioned earlier that the Lovers was all about like making love with yourself. And actually I think the symbols of the 8 of the strength card are kind of hand in hand with that. Someone told me this amazing allegory for self-love, and basically like pieces of your subconscious or your shadow, or basically pieces of yourself you don't like, in this allegory you would personify as a beast, right? So imagine like all the things you hate about yourself are this beast, and you lock it in a cage and you say like, ugh, I just hate you, and like I want you to go away. And it's kind of always about like condemnation. And like real self-love is about letting this beast out. And maybe you even have to have a battle, you know, maybe you're fighting all the time. Maybe it's not even locked in a cage. Maybe you fight with this. Maybe you fear it. Maybe you're at war with it. But real self-love is about taming this beast, and not even taming it, not even domesticating it, falling in love with it. You don't need a leash. You don't need to train it. About finding respect and love for each other's autonomy and beauty. And that there comes the synthesis. And that really is kind of what 8 is about. 8 is about having already done that with the Lovers, and 8 is about reveling in that strength, in that sense of integrity, of truly being at union with yourself. That even the scariest beast or the scariest predator is actually but a kitten, but a loved one. And just such a beautiful sentiment. Okay. That brings us to number 9, the Hermit. Oh, this is such a special card. The Hermit is the number 9, and the alphabet letter associated with this card is Yod. And the meaning of Yod means closed hand. And really the symbol behind all of this is deed and work. And the Hermit is really about inward awareness, the growth and the experience of diving deep within self. This is a really interesting card, I think, in like the modern Western world, because I notice it less and less common that people really have time alone, like without their phones, without a TV, like truly being in silence by themselves. And there's a reason why so many ancient religions implore monastic practices where people would retreat to the mountains or to caves, pardon me, to pray, to meditate by themselves. This is the work of the hermit, because deep within self lies the infinite. So almost every single tarot deck also has very similar imagery for the hermit. It's often an older man in darkness, with a cloak and a hood holding a lamp. And really, this lamp is really about being a beacon. When we retreat deep within ourselves, even in the deepest darkness, we become a beacon of light for others, you know. Whereas moths fly to the light, human spirits and animal spirits, spirits of all kind, consciousness does flock towards light, because that is the legacy of the infinite, of the creator of our multiverse. Also, I want to mention that 9 is a very magical number because it is 3 threes. And if I'm not mistaken, in astrology, a yod refers to like a certain kind of triangle. I think it's like a 90-degree triangle in your birth chart. I don't know a lot about astrology, but the number 3 and yod are highly connected. And 3 being the number of the Empress, being the number of creativity and self-discovery, creation. I find it so special that 3 threes would actually be such a internal number. And it's so funny to me that the hermit is often a man, because I think that the number 9 is so feminine. It's very Virgo energy, if you ask me. Oh, do you hear those birds? It's so pretty. Oh my God. Okay, that brings us to number 10. The number 10 is the Wheel of Fortune. Oh my God, I love this fucking card. So I mentioned the Hermit was actually closed hand, right? Yod. Whereas Wheel of Fortune, the alphabet letter is Kaf, and that means open hand. And this is such a fucking interesting card. I love this card. 10 is considered the first master number. And in a sense, it is so obvious, because the first 9 numbers, I guess you could say 10 because 0 would count, but the first digits of our system are single digit numbers, and then 10 becomes the first double digit. So from that point, you are repeating numbers, right? There's no new numbers at that point. You're using combinations of numbers to mean different things. And so 10 is all about a completion of cycles and the beginning of new cycles. And this is where I think a lot of people get confused with the Wheel of Fortune. It's not about good fortune or bad fortune, or good luck or bad luck, or even luck for that matter. It has nothing to do with luck. The idea of the Wheel of Fortune is a space in one's consciousness where one becomes aware that there is a cycle at play. See, the other experiences, the other archetypes before this card were very centered in experience, the experience of self and the experience of consciousness within self. But you see, in the Hermit, which was all about going within oneself, it leads you to the infinite, which brings you to 10. It brings you to the awareness. Oh, these dogs. it brings you to the awareness that cycles are endlessly repeating, and that wherever you are, whatever you're experiencing, be it joy, be it bliss, be it internal introspection, that there's actually a bigger cycle at play. And that is what 10 is all about. It's not about good fortune or bad fortune. It's the idea that fortune is a wheel. I met a man in India. His name was Jaggi. I hope that he is alive and well. I send blessings to him and his family. Jaggi was so fucking cool. I met him in I'm gonna give these dogs a break. Okay. I had to take a break because of these peppers. These barking peppers. It's okay. This is their world. Okay, but I was talking about Jaggi. And Jaggi was talking to me about karma, which is actually really about the Wheel of Fortune. It's really this idea of this wheel spinning. And he was saying that we always wish for the wheel to stop on top. We always want the good luck, and we always wish and wish and wish that the wheel will stop when it's on top, but it will keep going. And we always hope that the wheel won't stop on the bottom, but it always just keeps flowing and flowing. And really what he was saying is that we're always wishing for the wheel to stop in our favor, but the wheel never stops. The wheel never stops. And that's kind of really what the Wheel of Fortune is all about. It's this consciousness, this awareness that this cycle is never ending. And with that comes great wisdom, because that's when you can really start being in tune with nature. Beyond just planet Earth, there is the nature of energy. Everything is possible, but there is a pattern in which everything moves. See what I'm getting at? Okay, so that brings us to our next archetype, the number 11. This is known as Justice, and this card is considered like a true master card. So I was mentioning that 10 is considered the first master number. 11 is a master number, an angel number. It is like truly a card of great balance, tranquility, magic. It's 2 ones, but it's also after the number 10. So what I was really mentioning is that 10 is really about this awareness of cycles, which brings us to 11. After this awareness, after this breakthrough in awareness of self and awareness of the reality of our universe, comes the idea of justice. Justice is really about discernment. Let's think about like King Solomon and that story where these 2 women are fighting over a baby, right? And he says, okay, if the women can't decide whose baby it is, we'll cut the baby in half and give each piece of the baby to each woman. And one of the women says, no, just give it to the other woman. And that's when he says, okay, I can tell you're the real mother. He has this idea because he knows that the real mother would never want her child to be cut in half. And so it's a silly story, but really what I'm getting at is that's what justice is about. It's not about like getting justice over another person. It's really about a state of consciousness, of discernment and awareness. The ability of wisdom and consciousness, really, to a point where you have the ability to discern and to make decisions that are quote unquote right, or maybe a better way to say it, are the most harmonious with nature. So the letter in the alphabet symbolizing the justice is Lamed, which means goad or staff. And this is about prod or tongue. It's really about exercising your voice, exercising your opinion, creating justice with action, right? And the staff is like such a symbol of that. I think the staff, deep down in all of our ability to decode, the staff is like a symbol of the elder, the symbol of the wise one. I also read that like in some traditions, like in the Swami tradition in India of the Hindu priests, like some very high-ranking Swamis will carry staffs, and this is something like that's not even specific just to India or Asia. This is something all around the world. We see symbols of elders with staffs, and we associate that with great power and great wisdom and often magic, right? Just saying. So that is 11. And then that brings us to the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is so fucking interesting. Okay, so the Hanged Man, do you notice we're at 12 now? And 12 comes before 13. And 13 is death. I'm bringing this up because 12 is this number that's between justice and death. It's after this ability to really see things clearly, right? Justice is always about seeing things clearly, seeing things as they truly are, and being able to navigate and discern through that. And then, of course, death is really about letting go. It's about the nothingness. But in between that is the Hanged Man. What the fuck is the Hanged Man? The Hanged Man is about surrender. All of the numbers up to this point have implored autonomy and choice. They've implored a little bit of action, a state of being. The Hanged Man is really about choosing surrender, choosing to allow the universe to take over, to allow the infinite to be in control. This is about bowing your head to God, bowing your head to the infinite source, bowing your head to this creative energy that has created all things. The hangman actually also is interesting because it's not a person hanging from their neck. It is almost always a person hanging from one of their legs, and they're kind of in like an upside down tree pose. And the tree pose is also a pose about connecting with the creator energy, but it's just upside down, it's inverted. And I mean, also from like a movement point of view, inversions are really good about lengthening the spine. Having a straight spine allows for energy to move freely through your body, which allows more expansion of consciousness. But really, this is about like inverting your view of the world, inverting what it means to do, and it's about passivity. It's about actively choosing to let go. And it's so magical. So the Hebrew letter associated with this is mem, which means water. And really the allegorical meaning of this is like to overpower, reversal. And that's really what the hangman is all about. It's like, imagine your life is building momentum. It's like when you're stirring coffee and you're stirring it one direction and you're creating momentum, a whirlpool in this liquid, and then you change direction with your spoon. Have you done that? It like everything kind of gets crazy. That's kind of what hangman it's about. It's about completely like stopping this forward momentum and completely letting go. And really about letting go to the infinite, because that's when shit gets crazy. And that brings us to death. Death is really about transformation, transfiguration. There's 22 archetypes, and death is 13. Well, technically it's the 14th, right? Because the last number is 21. But really what I'm getting at is, if you notice, death is not the last archetype. And that's why it's kind of interesting to think of the archetype of the fool's journey, because you could think of it as a real life. You could think of the fool growing up, getting married, having a baby. That would, getting married would be lovers, having a baby would be Chariot, strength would be becoming a strong parent, there for your kids. Hermit would be getting old, going into yourself, Wheel of Fortune, becoming the wise man. Justice, becoming a true king, to be able to make decisions, to be trusted by the community. The Hangman, about letting go, not controlling anymore. And Death, about truly dying, right? So you could think about it in that allegory. But then after death, it gets trippier and trippier. That's why this is so magical, because consciousness really goes through this cycle, and we don't talk about it enough in Western countries, but death is not by any means the last stop on the train. Death is a moment of transfiguration, the cocoon, the chrysalis, if you will. And so death really is all about transformation within self. And this can only happen after the Hanged Man, after full surrender. As long as you're doing and deciding and you're always self-made and always thinking, right? And death is really about that empty space. Like sleeping, like a dream. It's that empty space between consciousness, where instead of you being conscious, the consciousness of the infinite can flow through you, and thus comes the transfiguration. The Hebrew letter for death is nun, which means fruit or fish. And really the allegorical meaning behind this is sprouting, activity, life. See what I'm saying? Like it has nothing to do with death at all, actually. And you know what? I haven't been talking about what faces of God they correspond to, but I am really interested with death. Death connects the face of beauty and victory of God. You see what I'm saying? Like, and it's just so sad that we fear it. I mean, I think a really big part of that is like the Christian religion, and specifically the modernized Christian religion that has been indoctrinated with like Roman belief and like Roman government, right? I feel like I am like beating a dead horse with this, but in every episode I really talk about how Rome used Christianity as PR for getting their government to have deeper claws in their outer territories. Rome was such a huge kingdom, they couldn't really get loyalty from all their subjects. But by converting everyone to Christianity, they could have everyone be loyal to Jesus. And then they could just put words in Jesus's mouth. You know, they could just make up what Jesus's opinion is and make up laws. And now people are loyal to Christianity. It's really like a PR move to be able to combine government with religion. And so I feel like Christianity has been a really big part in people fearing death, because they're told, you know, after everything you do in this life will be judged, and then you'll either go to heaven or hell, and you only have one life, blah, 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 blah. But here, based on the tarot, based on the Kabbalah, based on these ancient Egyptian religions, based on literally every ancient religion on earth, death is but an intermediary point, a point between consciousness, a lull, a moment of sleep, and it's bursting with light. And I think it's so symbolic that death is the pathway that connects the face of beauty and the face of victory. That is just so beautiful. Okay, let's keep flying on through. I'm gonna cover all of the major arcana, and then next episode we'll talk about the minor arcana. How about that? So, after death comes temperance. This is the number 14. Wait. I want to go back to death for a second. Almost every death card has like a skeleton. And I think that's something to think about, because we do, you know, when we think of skeletons, we do think of like dying. But really, like, what the symbol is supposed to be about is like transcending your flesh. Like flesh no longer being a binding to you, and that energy is now like flowing freely. So it's really about like releasing shackles from like a state of being, a state of consciousness, a state where like flesh was once a prison. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out. Okay, so now we have Temperance, which is number 14. I love this card. This card is so beautiful. Temperance very often has a woman with two vessels, maybe cups, or often like jugs. She has big jugs. No, I'm sorry, I'm the worst. No, like vessels, like like water vessels, and she's often pouring water between these vessels, and she's often by a river. That's a common depiction of temperance. Temperance is really about this like first rebirth after death. Death is kind of the moment where you transition from earthly consciousness to a multiversal consciousness, a transitioning from a universal consciousness to a multiversal consciousness. And so temperance is really kind of like a mixture of like high priestess and the magician. It's this state of being, this awakening to this multiverse. And it's very symbolic that the card often has a woman like playing with water, because water is life force. So you could think of this water as like this allegorical life force that now she is playing with, almost like a toy, has life force at her disposal. And so the Hebrew letter of the alphabet that corresponds to this pathway is known as Samek, and this means tent or prop. And the symbology behind this is about support, about wisdom, deep support. And this is just so beautiful to me, because it's, to me, kind of like once you transcend flesh and bone, you kind of are now in tune with a more ancient consciousness, a consciousness connected with ancestors, but also descendants. That's the support. It's this never-ending fabric of support of consciousness that transcends our personal experience. It is multiversal. Okay, so then after temperance, we have number 15. Okay, this is a controversial card. Number 15 is the devil. Okay, first and foremost, this is like a card that is like, I do want to like get deep into, because this is like a really big example of like Christianity like infusing itself into tarot. So like I mentioned, like tarot decks were brought over from Egypt, but we don't really have, that's not really a part of the zeitgeist. Almost all tarot decks that are now referenced are based off the Rider-Waite, which was based off of the Les Cartes de Marseille, which were playing cards based off of tarot. And you know, the devil is a super layered and nuanced idea that modernized European Christianity has really just fucking taken to town and like really ran with. And from my understanding, the devil is all about exploring the dark side. But what is the dark side? We could say it is evil, but truly what the dark side is our blind spot. Because when we start breaking down good and evil, it's all subjective. You know, I could have an idea of this is good and that is evil, but someone on the other side of the world, or someone in the other next door to me, could be thinking the opposite, that the things I think are evil are good, and the things I think are good are evil. And so when you start exploring quote unquote evil, when you start exploring darkness, when you start exploring things that scared you, things that you pushed aside, things that you had never even considered, it becomes an expansion of awareness. It's playful, actually. It can be scary, it can be terrifying. You know, like a like a fun allegory for the devil would be to like do drugs. Like, let's say you do like fucking mushrooms or acid. I mean, even like something crazy, like it's the experience of diving into a state of consciousness that was not accessible to you. And through that comes like unlocking doors, unlocking these binaries. But almost every tarot deck I've seen, almost all of them have like very Christian symbols on the tarot deck. They often have like a fawn, like a goat man, which is like what we associate with Satan. So has like goat horns and like a male torso, but he'll have like goat legs, and then often he'll have a female and a male character that are chained, often by their necks, like almost like enslaved humans. And I think that the Christian idea of this was like the brutality of the carnal temptations of the animalistic brain, and like kind of like Adam and Eve symbology of like sex and like adultery and inebriation, and like I think that's all like really like kind of like problematic symbology. I also have mentioned before that like the goat specifically is a really interesting symbol that has been demonized, because almost every single ancient culture would use goats for sacrifice. And so they would often sacrifice goats to a god, and then they would feast on that goat. And also in Judaism, there was a practice of scapegoating. We still use this word scapegoat, but the scapegoating was actually a practice where they would take two goats and they would push one off a cliff, and basically this goat would like pay for all the sins of the people. It was a sacrifice to God, but this goat would take the ill karma, the bad fate, the sins of everyone, and pay. And then they would send another goat into the wilderness that could be free and connect with nature. But the scapegoat, like it's just so funny to me that I feel like goats have been scapegoated to be associated with evil. And in my opinion, it seems more that so many religions, because they used goats for milk, for meat, for sacrifices, that eventually Christianity deemed it as like a pagan worship and deemed it as evil. Also, again, the European Christian church is like really incubated in Rome, and fauns were a really big part of their culture, and specifically Pan. And I've actually done a bunch of research into this, that there was a term in ancient Rome for sky gods and indigenous gods. And fauns were considered indigenous gods from Earth. So it could also be that in Italy, in Rome, that eventually they started associating fauns with being devils because they're false gods. Because at one point they were known as indigenous gods. And now, in our modern understanding of Rome and Greece, fauns were just like side characters, slaves of the gods. But at one point they were known as indigenous gods, earth gods. So that could be, that's just me pontificating on an explanation of like why like goat and fawn imagery is just associated with the devil. So anyway, the Hebrew letter in the alphabet that associates with the devil is ayin, which means eyes. And the allegorical meaning behind this is experience, knowledge. Do you see what I'm saying? The devil isn't actually about evil. It's about experience. It's about opening experience, opening knowledge. And one could say that on the tarot deck, these two humans, the male and the female, who are chained, this card is about unleashing them. It's about unleashing binary. Binaries do not exist. Good, evil, male, female, dark, light. All of these things are actually imprisoning our consciousness. And the devil's play, the devil card, is about opening those, playing with the side that you demonized, playing with the thing that you thought was evil, allowing things to fall naturally into focus, which is that it's all fucking made up. Okay, so out of curiosity, let's see what death connects, which two faces of God the devil connects. So the devil connects beauty and splendor. See? And like, this is like what's so misleading. And I really do think that devil is the wrong word, but this kind of comes from the Europeification of tarot. But like beauty and splendor, how does this sound like evil, you know? And this really sounds like Rome being fucking terrified of Rome being fucking terrified. This is what I'm getting. Okay, so after the devil comes the Tower. The Tower is one of my favorite cards of all time. The Tower is number 16. So the devil, in the sense, I think of the devil as like another death. Death was like a huge energetic transformation, but the devil is like a consciousness transformation. It's a transformation of binary thinking. It's a transformation of things that you once feared, things that you never considered, things that were living in the shadows that have now come to light. And after that comes the Tower. The Tower is an allegory for the Tower of Babel. It is said that the Tower of Babel in Babylon stood for thousands of years, and eventually the people of Babylon tore it down. There's debate into why. Some say it was like religious reasons. Some say, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, but really it is an allegory as all of this is. The Tower is the moment where you realize that everything that you once believed, everything that you associate with self is made up, right? You just finished the devil. You just went through the devil and went through this realization that you've created a binary thought process, that you've been living in a closed-minded way of thinking and believing. And once you do that, you become aware. Once you emerge from the devil, you become aware that you are actually living in a tower. You are looking down upon the earth, but you're actually removed from everything. You have built an ego for yourself. You have built a made-up reality based on what you think is true, what you think is right, what you think is wrong. And so the Tower is the moment where you realize and decide that you want no more of it. So you set the Tower on fire and you jump out the window with full faith and full trust. Metal. That's fucking metal as fuck. Dude, so powerful. So powerful. We love the Tower. I feel like I have implored the Tower so many times in my life, and it's always so fun because it just brings changes. And every time you abandon what you think you are allowing yourself true grace to grow into who you really are, which is infinite. So powerful. The Hebrew letter for the Tower is Fe, which means throat or mouth. And really this is about symbolizing speak or word. This is really about aligning intentions with actions, right? I speak, therefore I am. I don't think it's the saying, but it's really about speaking things into existence, right? This is about truth. And that's really what the Tower is all about. It's about truth, and it's about synthesis in truth. I choose not to live separated from nature. I choose not to be living in this made-up tower I built for myself of what is good and evil and what is right and wrong. I abandoned this. I set it on fire. I'm out, bitch. Ugh. And Tower connects victory and splendor, the two faces of God. It's so beautiful. So after Tower leads us to Star. So you see, we're getting like trippier and trippier here. We had our devil, we had our experience of embracing our shadow. We have the Tower, abandoning everything we thought was us, abandoning binary. Then comes to Star. Binary Star. If you don't listen to Binary Star, great album, or great band, I should say. Amazing. So after Tower comes Star. Star is all about becoming this star being, this consciousness that is completely let go of of binary. There is no flesh. There is no energy. It's all one. It's all this big soup. To be able to travel freely throughout the cosmos, to be an emanating star of light. And these archetypes become trippier and trippier. They become more and more mystical, because as does the consciousness. As the consciousness grows, it becomes more and more mystical. It is truly alchemy. And the star often has a symbol of a naked woman by a river. And she often has like a star in the sky, and often has her hand dipping in this river. She is one with the flow of eternity. My first tarot deck was like a new agey deck, and it was like collaged, but the star card was so beautiful, and I still reference it in my mind when I think of the star. It was a very simple card. It was like a photograph of the cosmos, and then there was a jade statue of Kuan Yin with a bunny rabbit on her arm, and she's floating through space. And I love that symbol of the star. It's really just this idea of being this like phantom, this phantasma, this ghost, this eternal light, this jade goddess traveling through time and space. It's a state of consciousness, of course, but it's just that image of Kuan Yin made of jade. The bird agrees with a little jade bunny rabbit is just so beautiful. So the Hebrew letter associated with star is tzadi, which means hook. And this corresponds to the idea of honesty, of harvest, right? Living in true honesty, living at true peace with self and eternity, to be able to harvest energy from the multiverse. Like this is getting into like real magic shit. And star leads us to moon. Oh, we love moon. Moon is about synchronizing self with the patterns, right? The moon is an orbit. It orbits our earth. It is about cycles. It's also the allegory of femininity, this idea not of like vagina, but the idea of the internal self, the private self, the subconscious, becoming the subconscious, becoming the cycle of waxes and wanes without having to do, with just being. And I love it. I love the moon. I love the moon symbology, because it's really about that magical hidden subconscious, the things that are not seen, the things that can't be named, the things that there are no words to describe, but that just are. And that's what the consciousness of the moon is all about. The associating letter with the moon is known as Kof. And this actually means back of head, right? That's the subconscious. And really it's alluding to the hidden, what is behind. It's the dark side of the moon. Do you see what I'm getting at? And the moon connects the pathways of the face of kingdom and victory. So beautiful. So, of course, moon leads us to sun. Sun is truly being a giant star, a warm star that planets revolve around, a star that's so bright that it can create solar system, that it can sustain life, a consciousness that is so big that it is beyond self anymore. It is a parent, if you will, much like our sun is our parent. And this is quote unquote, like the masculine self. What does that mean? It's not penis. It's about action self. It's about outward self. It is about what is visible, what is seen, the doer. And this is the state of consciousness where your consciousness is just shining. It's about brightness. It can't be hidden. It's fucking there. Like it is fucking Buddha. It is fucking shining, bro. The corresponding letter in Hebrew is resh, which means face. And this associates with redemption, with highest. This is a face of God, a face of Creator. See what I'm saying here? And now we only have 2 left. So that leaves us with the number 20, which is Judgment. And I wanted to talk about this card too, because Judgment is kind of a loaded word in English, or I should say in Anglo-American culture. This card isn't about judging others, but I would say about being the judge. I think that a better word, just for our Americanized or Westernized understanding, I think a better word for this archetype would be the judge. But it doesn't really matter. It's the same shit. It's all semantics. But I'm just saying, I've just noticed over time, the word judgment just has a lot of negative connotations. But really, the essence of this card, Akins. Sorry, guys. Okay. The essence of Judgment is about the true sight, right? We've just processed through this entire incredible esoteric evolution where we let go of our bodies. We experienced the consciousness of the multiverse, experienced the darkness, right? We've gone through all of these archetypes, and that is where we really land on Judgment, the ability to see things for as they really are, beyond just as objects, to see past objects, to see time and space as it really is. I was mentioning my first tarot deck. Actually, in that deck, this card was amazing. They, instead of calling it Judgment, they called it Time Space. And it was really about a state of consciousness where your consciousness has grown so big that you can see where time and space intersect. And instead of linear reality, you can just see. It's the seer. Maybe that would be another good rebrand. Call it the seer. I'm actually going to be working on a tarot deck this year. I've been talking about it for over 10 years. I'm making a tarot deck, and stay tuned. But I might call this card the seer. So in Hebrew, the alphabet, the letter is known as Shin, which means tooth. And this is about to consume, to destroy. Interesting. It's really about destroying these old preconceived notions. The true judge, the juror and the judge. The one with the true sight, the one with the gavel. And that leads us to the world or the universe, number 21, which is the 22nd archetype. This is the card of union with self, with the multiverse, union with your consciousness, with the creator consciousness. This is about complete, full-on reintegration with the fabric of reality, which comes from our great creator. And that, honestly, in a weird way, that is the most straightforward archetype. The corresponding letter in Hebrew is Tav, which means sign or cross. And this associates with the covenant, seal, with truth, with God, I don't think God is a man in the sky with a white beard, but I do believe God is a creative energy, probably a sun, probably a star of some kind, probably just a beacon of energy which emanates light out of itself. Light is what we are all made of, and light is what the universe is made out of. And our creator probably is a condensed being of light. And those are the 22 archetypes. And from there, that's when we can get really crazy. I think I'm going to do a part 3 where I talk about the minor arcana. But the archetypes are truly the meat of the story. the meat of the tarot. And the archetypes alone, regardless if you read tarot or not, or do tarot readings, studying the archetypes is a fantastic way to dive deeper into the human experience and truly into the experience of consciousness. I'm telling you guys, it's fucking crazy. I mean, and each one is its own fucking rabbit hole. And yeah, I highly recommend for everyone to like look up the Merkaba, like I was mentioning earlier. Sometimes you can even order like online, like crystals in that shape, because it's kind of hard to imagine in your mind as a three-dimensional object. But by studying it in person, you can then start imagining it in your mind's eye, and then you can try to make your aura that shape, and that's when you can theoretically like become a magician. So that's like top secret ancient wisdom. But I just figure if you're still listening, then you probably, yeah, you know, I feel like no one who's a hater is still listening at this point. Because who has the fucking stamina to listen to this stuff? But this is alchemy. You know, a lot of European scientists and priests who call themselves alchemists were looking for the sorcerer's stone. They were looking for the ability to turn any stone into gold. And what they were missing is that it's actually a consciousness. And once you truly align your consciousness with the consciousness of the creator, then you can turn anything to gold. I mean, you can literally perform miracles. We're going to get into that soon. I'm going to talk about some different methodologies of being able to perform miracles and magic. But this is a personal feat of internal alchemy, which can then translate into physical alchemy. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. If you like my podcast, please subscribe. If depending on what platform you're listening on, please rate my podcast, write a review. Thank you so much. I officially have a Patreon now, and I have a online store for merch. Both will have links in the description. I appreciate you so much for listening. I appreciate you so much for coming to planet Earth at this time. We need more magical people like you. We need more beautiful people like you. So thank you for being here on planet Earth. I send you so much love, and over and out.